Alright, so we're going to start with this Discover logo here. It's super simple to do. You just draw these circles. So I'll come down here and I'll draw this red circle. Just the color. Color red, you want to shape it up. And same thing, you can copy it over and make this orange one here. And then actually, so I already did it up here with the Pathfinder, but if you take these two shapes, and then in the Pathfinder tool, let's see where, pull it up here. This Pathfinder tool you'll see over here, it's the intersect. So it's going to take those two shapes and intersect them. And you'll come up with this shape here. And you'll just bring that to front. Arrange, bring to front. And that will be your Discover logo. And if you want to add a trademark for the Discover logo, you come down here. You go to type, glyph, and you can see where it says, you might have to do a little bit of searching. So the Glyphs is a all character palette. Think of it as like a giant on-screen keyboard. So you can find a trademark logo somewhere in here. Might take you a little bit of time to find it. It's usually by copyright, naturally. There it is. TM, you just double click it. And then what's really cool is you can go to type, create outlines. And what that's going to do is that's going to take that artwork and create it to vector. And then you can go and manipulate it any way you want it. Going to give it outlines. Does it exactly what I want it to do. So there you have the Discover logo, and then you can turn off the original layer, see what it looks like. A few adjustments I have to make down here. Make sure it lines up nice. Double click the magnifying glass to go full screen and adjust your view in and out. And there you have it. There's the Discover logo. All right, on to the next one. We got the Nike Swoosh, which is easier than the Discover logo even. So let's type in Discover logo on that. Let's create a new layer. Let's lock the Discover logo. Let's call this Nike. You always want to work in layers in Adobe Illustrator. It's helpful to select things and keep organized, to work in layers and name things. I can't stress that enough, especially if you're dealing with a really complex piece of art or document. Layers help a lot in terms of identifying things quick enough. So the Nike Swoosh, we're going to use probably the most important tool in Illustrator, called the Pen Tool, which is this little icon right here. Now the Pen Tool, it's good for drawing any kind of artwork or drawing logos or making weird shapes. It does exactly what it says it does. It's a pen tool. So you kind of click once, and then there's an arrow that drags out. And so you're just connecting. Think of it like connect the dots, but you're setting the dots. So you're just retracing the shape. And then when you click, you can bend it to make curves. So any kind of bizarre shape, such as the Nike Swoosh, which couldn't be made just using the simple shape tools like a triangle or a square or a circle or something like that. Yeah, you'll need to use that pen tool to make. So I have kind of a rough layout here. It's a little jagged, you can see, but what we can do is there's a super secret tool in Illustrator. I will show you guys. These 3 dots down here will activate all these other hidden tools that are in Illustrator. There's a tool called the Smooth Tool that you can use that actually smooths out point to point, so you can make things nice and smooth. So when it comes to the Nike Swoosh, things are nice and smooth, and that's looking pretty good. Let's give it a little bit more smoothing. Smooth tool. So the more you work it, the smoother it gets. And you can adjust it, how you want it to look. So yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, on to the next one. Let's do the McDonald's logo. So we'll type in McDonald's logo up here in the layers palette. Now this one, probably the easiest way of doing it is, again, probably the pen tool. So we're going to start, we can zoom in. We'll click here, here. You can hold down Shift to draw straight lines. And then I'm just moving it. Let's do that. I'm just manipulating it. And then you'll see it'll have these like handles. You can manipulate those, drag them to get the desired shape you want. And, the more you use this pen tool, the more you'll become proficient with it, like anything in life. And then you always want to anchor when you're like moving to a different section. You want to anchor your pen tool strokes. So like this, it'll want to make a curve. Well, just anchor it, click it, and then it'll reset itself, and then you can create a new point. So again, anchor, and then make a new point here. You just follow the path as best you can. And there we go. We kind of have a rough layout of the McDonald's logo. Again, we can use the smooth tool to kind of smooth out some of those humps that have kind of look a little bit more jagged, just to get it a little bit more rounded. Get it to where you want it to look like a pretty, as much as the original logo as possible. So that looks pretty good. And then you select your new path that you just drew. There's a stroke and a fill. Right now the stroke is set to black. You can see the outline of black. You'll click on the yellow, and there you go. You got the McDonald's yellow. And there is a McDonald's logo. All right, let's do this Target logo next. This one is probably about the easiest of the group. So you can create just one little circle in the middle. You use the eyedropper to select the color that you want, and then you just gotta size it, to fit that template you have, or call it like a tracing template. So there you go. And then the outer is a little bit more difficult. You're gonna select the stroke. So what this is going to do, this is going to make a circle that has nothing in the middle, but has like a stroke. Think of it as like a giant donut. And so what you want to do is go up here to the stroke weight, and instead of 1 point, you want to increase it to, oh, I'd say about 20. Sounds about good to start off. And then you're going to want to select the size and adjust it. It might be kind of hard to see right now, so let's go off red and go like a darker red. Then it'll be easier to notice like where you want to position this thing in ratio of the original target logo, the low res one we got offline. So it's looking pretty good. Let's add a little bit more beef to this, about 22. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Maybe like 23, 24. Just so it covers up everything you want. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's go back with the original, that original red. And then it took, there we go. We have the original, oh, my mistake. It took the 1 point again. Let's go back to 24. There we go. Boom, target logo. Looks just like it. So you can see how quickly, and then once one thing is, you know, manipulated originally on Illustrator, it's really easy to copy paste. You can go up to edit, copy, paste, and it will paste. So like if you need this trademark around different places, you can just paste it, and put it in different spots that you want it with your various logos you're designing. All right, let's try it. This will be a good one for the pen tool. This one's the Apple logo. Type in Apple logo. So practice makes perfect when it comes to the pen tool. And I always suggest zooming in really close no matter what you're working on. So we can use 1 point here, 1 point here, and then zoom out just a bit. We want to manipulate these handles. There we go. To get the little leaf on the Apple logo. There we go. All right, and then the actual shape of the apple with the bite bitten out. You go up here, drag it, and click. Go connect this thing around. Good. So once you get proficient with the pen tool in Illustrator, it's really easy to do just about anything in terms of logo design or recreating artwork. Sometimes, being a graphic designer, you get low-res images that you'll have to retrace. People will give you low-res logos, and you'll have to figure out a way to get them high-res. So this is one way of doing that, is to just kind of remake it, redraw it. So once you have the outline of the Apple logo, you'll want to just select the interior color of that Apple logo. and boom, set to black. And it's a little rough right now. So again, let's take the smooth tool and let's do some minor adjustments on this bad boy here. So you want to kind of make it a little bit more rounded, and that's what's great about this smooth tool, is that it does that for you. It rounds things, so it makes it much nicer. Oh, I got 2 trademarks over here. Drag this down. Oops. Delete that. Copy this trademark. Paste it here. Let's give Mcdonald's a trademark because they're trademarked. We don't want Ray Kroc and friends coming after me. Okay. Apple. As I said, I don't own the rights to any of these logos. They're for educational purposes only. So, yeah, Instagram logo is kind of the same thing as the Target logo. But this is just using a gradient background. I'm going to pull up another item really quick, and I'll show you how to digitize a photograph. So let's save this work. I'll show you how to save. Let's turn this background layer off. And then these are all the logos that we did. So we'll go up to File, Save As. And I know you guys aren't able to see this screen, but it's a Save As screen. And so then at that point, you can save to your desktop. .ai is an Illustrator file, or you can save it as a PDF or an EPS. So we're just going to go ahead and save it to the desktop. You can name it Logos. All right, so let's clear this off. This is all saved. Let's take our next item here. So what I'm going to show you guys now is how to take a photograph and convert it to vectors. Now, you want to make sure you have a pretty decent computer when doing this, because it uses up a lot of RAM at one time. Your computer, so what it's doing is it's going to take all these colors and all these shapes and lines of this photograph, and it's going to throw them through the, lack of better words, a matrix, and convert it to vectors so it's scalable and it's artwork. So there's a really cool thing in Adobe Illustrator called Image Trace. You click it, and see, it's tracing may produce slowly with this large image, so it's going to take a little bit of time to do. You hit OK. Like I said, if you have a good computer, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. So you can see now that it created that artwork into a vectorized image. So if you want to vectorize things, Adobe Illustrator is your program to do it. You can see as I blow this up, it will still say, it will re-vectorize the image and still keeping the same resolution of the image. So I'm just gonna see, you can still see all this detail that was on this tiger is now like solid color. Even if I zoom in, it's not pixelated. It's all one solid color, so it's all black and white, which is really cool. If you want to do color, there's a image trace panel that comes up. Let me dock it to show you guys here. Let me see if I can image trace. So the image trace has presets, views. Mode is what you want, and you also want to pay attention to the threshold. because the more you go on the threshold, it's going to block out. You go all the way, it's going to be full black. So you don't want that. You want to make it probably about middle of the road is usually good for black and white. You can do grayscale. Grayscales, will become in handy sometimes. Again, the higher you go on the threshold, you can see this. Look at the amazing detail you can get of that. And it's still just all these little shapes. So it's a really smart program that it's able to do stuff like that. So and then let's take color. I'm going to show you like a side-by-side comparison of the vectorized image compared to the regular pixel bitmap image. Okay, so let's scale this down a little bit here. Like I said, it takes a little bit of time. It's loading as we speak. Here you see, and so the top one will be the vector, the bottom one will be the actual photograph. Let me line them up as best I can. Get the sizing a little bit more accurate. And at glancing, you can barely tell which one is vector, which one is photograph. But after this gets done loading, I'll zoom in, and then you'll really be able to tell. And this is very nice high-res image. I got off a site called Pixabay. We use it all the time here in the DMS. I can't recommend it enough. It has free photographs, vectors, videos, music. So I highly suggest you guys should check it out. It's free to sign up. So a lot of the stuff we do here at the DMS, we utilize Pixabay. So you'll see the original photograph. As I zoom into it, it will eventually start to pixelate and get boxy. Think of it as like an old 8-bit Super Mario video game. So, and that is a super high-res image, but the vector, as you zoom in, still solid color. So this is a really good tutorial, I think, to show you guys just the kind of the difference when people say vector images and bitmap images. That this one here is vector. Let's pull it up. So vector here and bitmap, which is pixelated pixel image made up of pixels. Think of pixels as small dots, bitmap. So that's kind of the two different file types that we use between the Adobe programs and in graphic design. You're either working with vectors or you're working with bitmap images. So let's delete the bitmap, go back to the vector. You can also do different views. You can look at the outlines view. You can see that this is how many points that is made up of this drawing. This will kind of give you more of the algorithm of how this actually works. And then there's several different presets you can pick if you want to print like just 3 colors. You can set it to 3 colors. And sometimes you don't want a bunch of colors if you're trying to nail down just a few colors on a design. You don't want to kind of pigeonhole yourself where you're overabundance in colors and you can't. If you only need just 3 colors, then don't throw a lot of color in the thing. But if you want high detail, I mean, the more color, the better. So you'll see the difference here. See, it gave it this cool effect, but it's switching out colors and using them wisely still to form that detail in the piece. It's like I said, it's a great little tracing filter for doing many things. So I can't recommend it enough. All right, let's cancel that. The last thing we're going to go over is this picture of the bunny. So this already is a vector image. You can see once I click on it, all the points that I've made up to this. So if you're doing like a kid's coloring book and you want really nice lines, I suggest you getting really proficient with the pen tool. You can also use a drawing tablet to make, these in Adobe Illustrator. So like they do have a pencil tool if you wanted to draw an eye. And then you would set the stroke to black. And then you can manipulate what size the stroke you want. So if you were making a kid's coloring book, Illustrator wouldn't be a bad thing to use. Also, what's nice is each point, so say if you drew the rabbit's nose and you weren't really happy with the size of it, it's pretty easy to manipulate, move around, edit. Say you want this, I don't know, a bigger indentation, or you want his nose to dip down more, or you want this more round or smoothed out. So you pick the smooth tool, smooth it about, smooth it around. I'll kind of go through these tools and kind of go over briefly of what they do here. So this is a selection tool. It's just used to select the actual piece of artwork. It's also used to, you can drag the corners to resize it. Hold down Shift to scale proportions. So you can scale down the bunny rabbit really small. You can scale the bunny rabbit up real big. Also, you're able to rotate with the selection tool. The direct selection tool, which is right next to it here, will let you automatically choose the line points so you can manipulate them. So say if you want to move down his just his one whisker or copy it, you can use the direct selection tool to copy it down and move it. And then, the other selection tool to rotate it. They kind of work hand in hand. So say we want 3 whiskers on each side instead of 2. There we go. All right, next is my favorite, the pen tool, which is used like we did in the logo portion of this to create shapes. And now you could use those shapes once they're totally encapsulated into a shape. You can either select the stroke, which is the outline of it, or the fill, which is the fill of it. So the pen tool is probably the most used tool and most important tool in Illustrator, bar none, I would say. The Curvature Pen Tool, it's a little bit more free-flowing of a pen tool. You kind of just... it makes more curves, and if you're doing a lot of like cursive or twirly things, I don't use it that often, but it's kind of what it's used for in terms of if you're going to go around more curves and more stuff like that, it might be a good route to go. And then we have a load of shape tools. We have a rectangle tool, does exactly what it says it does, makes a rectangle, and then you can take that, manipulate it, rotate it, scale it. You can round the corners to it. You can do a number of things. Ellipse tool, same thing, just makes an ellipse. Pretty self-explanatory. Polygon tool is cool because if you click it once, it'll tell you how many sides you want. So if you want a 50-sided polygon, just almost looks like a circle. There's so many, but you can see that it put a point every single place. So if you want to make a stop sign, you just do 8. And there you go. You got a stop sign. So you'll see all the points in it. It made 8 points to make this stop sign. Star tool, exactly what it says it does. Makes a star. Line segment tool, again, exactly what it does, makes a line. Another pretty cool tool is the Paintbrush Tool, which I think is a pretty cool tool. Pencil tool, same thing if you just want a free draw. Pencil tool is your way to go. So if you had a drawing tablet, you could use the pencil tool or the paintbrush tool. Write your name. Type tool. There's several different ways to type in Adobe Illustrator. You can type kind of just across. And then it works just like any of the other Adobe programs or any other programs like Word. You can type, you can increase the size of the font, change the font itself. So if you want to go with something, more Old West looking, so that is the type tool. You can also do type on a path tool, which is, so if this whole bunny here, he has a path going around him. So you can click here. Oh, you must click on it. This will be easier. Let's create a ellipse. And then let's use the type on a path. And there you can see Billy the Rabbit. And so what that's doing is that's putting the type on a path. So it's setting it on this circle. So if you need to fit type in a certain area, you can do that. You can also rotate it around. So the possibilities are endless. You can also do vertical type. I would also, if you wanted to design tattoos, Illustrator I feel would be a good program for that too. It's a really good drawing program. Rotate tool, you really don't need to use that much because the direct selection tool kind of does that for you, but the rotate tool does the same exact thing. Scale tool, reflect tool. Reflect tool is kind of cool. If you have an image, you need to, spin it around one way or another. Reflect it. Oh, the bunny got away from me there. Let me pop him upside down. You can also do edit transform up in the top taskbar, and you'll be able to manipulate it there. Object, transform, reflect, and then it'll give you horizontal or vertical or an angle that you want to reflect it. So there's different ways of doing things. Shear tool, it shears it. What that means is it kind of just distorts it. I don't use that much, but it's there. You might need it. Eraser tool is actually pretty helpful. So say, you want to redo his top of his head here. Think of the eraser tool as erasing points. See how this whole bunny has points? So if you don't like the top of his head, you can just erase it. And then it'll reform those points. And so then you can redraw, his head in if you want it to be, more round or what. And give him an egg head. Poor bunny. Or Mr. Bunny. There we go. Let's see, this tool here. Copy tool. This shape builder tool. Again, I never use this tool. You probably won't need it, but it's kind of cool if you have a lot of I'll show you a good example. If you have a lot of individual shapes and you want to combine them, if you wanted to make some clouds here, the shape builder tool would be what you want to use it for. I can get it to work. Let's try this one more time here. Let's try the shape builder tool. Alright, well, it doesn't seem like it wants to work for me. It's okay, I never use that tool anyway. Gradient tool. Gradient tool is very cool. Gradients are great for coloring things. So if you wanted to take this bunny and color his nose, you can select just his nose. Go over to down here where it says gradient. You see it down here. There's going to be a pop-up screen. I know you guys can't see it, but you can, let's go back. It'll be easier to show you if we draw a circle and then fill that in as a gradient. And then we can choose what colors we want in the gradient. There's swatches. Let's go open swatch library. Let's do gradients. Let's do fruits and vegetables. I always like because that's got some really good colors in it. Here, let me dock it so you guys can see it. So if you wanted this bunny to have a purple nose, you could choose a purple gradient. And then from there, once you get the gradient in there, you can manipulate the gradient. We can do, -60. You can see how you can do a linear gradient, meaning all the colors flow linearly throughout the piece. Starts radial, so it starts at the center and kind of builds the way out. Or there's a freeform gradient that kind of has every combination of the two. I typically like to stay with linear or radial. You want gradients, I think, to kind of be subtle for the most part. So there you go. You just gave that bunny a nice purple nose. A little bit of gradient on there. You can manipulate it however you want. He can have more of a black dot in the center. The Eyedropper tool, I showed you guys that earlier. That comes in super handy for, especially if you have a lot of different colors on the page. The eyedropper will automatically select that color that it eyedrops. Think of it as in realistic terms of like in real life of you have an actual eyedropper and you take a little, you have a palette of colors and you take a little bit here. So if I want to use this red, I'll just, I want this color here to be red. I'll just click red and it'll fill it in red. And then I'll change it to the stroke. So the eyedropper is really helpful to quickly pick out colors. So can't recommend that tool enough. That comes in really helpful. This width tool, this I don't use too often, but it is kind of helpful. If you have something like, let's take like his little down here is a little like smile he's got. If you want to change the width of it, you grab one of the points. And it should anchor out. Hold on. Doesn't want to work for me. Do it over here. Maybe let's do it with this rectangle. Well, the width tool does not want to work for me. That's okay. I never use it anyway. Blend tool's not bad. Morph shapes and colors between two or more objects. The Artboard tool actually is really helpful. If you have to resize your artboard, you'll want to use this Artboard tool. You can see I can make it small, and then up in the corner it tells you the width height. So this actually is a pretty useful tool in terms of resizing things. So if you want to, if you have to set your artboard to a certain size that you want, you can do it right here through the tool. There's also a handy zoom tool that you use a lot. You can zoom in, zoom out. That's really helpful. Hand tool is pretty much you're just moving the sheet of paper, the artboard, around with the grabber hand. Rotate it with the grabber hand. Pretty self-explanatory. And then you go into some of these more specialty tools, like the flare tool is kind of cool to create kind of cool flares. If you ever need a solar flare, you can do that. There's different pen tools in terms of adding anchors or deleting anchors. There's an arc tool, line segment tool, spiral tool, rectangle, polar grid tool if you need to create like some kind of grid, like a spider web. You can do that fairly quickly, fairly easily. Let's make it red. So if you wanted to create something, some kind of grid, you can do that relatively quickly in Illustrator. There's already tools built in. Like I mentioned, the smooth tool. There's also a symbol sprayer tool, which is kind of helpful. I'll show you guys really quick. You want to pull up your window and go under S for symbols. I'll dock it so you guys can see it. You want to open. There's a bunch of already preset symbols inside of Adobe Illustrator that you can use. We can use this hair and fur for this rabbit. Let me dock it so you guys can see it. And so you'll see these all little individual pieces of fur you can just pull out. And it says it's a symbol, but it's just like a one piece that you can use. Like think of it as like a little piece of artwork. So you can use this to kind of, if you wanted to give him some hair on top, you could pull these in and do it. For a cartoon character or something like that, I think these would be good to kind of use. If you wanted to give him some hair. There's other symbols that are really cool. There's arrows, ribbons, logo elements, mad science, maps, mobiles, nature. Some of the more symbols are really detailed. You'll see it's kind of like pre-designed vector artwork. That is built into Adobe Illustrator. You guys will be able to use fish, you name it. Leaves. So you can see the detail that you can get. You get really good with Adobe Illustrator and what you can do with it. And then there's different bar graphs, column graphs you can make in Adobe Illustrator. There's area type tools, which lets you type inside of an area. So like if you wanted to type something inside of a circle, you could do that with the area type tool. So that will set the type inside of the area. Let's see. Character. There we go. Dock this over here so you can see it. So you can see it set that type inside of that circle. There's also another handy thing is if you go up to View and go into Rulers, Show Rulers, there's rulers already built into Adobe Illustrator, and you can change from pixels, points, picas, inches, feet, yards, millimeters, centimeters, meters. I like to use inches, but so that's really helpful. There's a built-in ruler system inside of Adobe Illustrator in case you need to measure from one section of your artwork to another. That is really helpful. So that's going to do about it for today. Let me know if you guys have any questions here. You can email them to us at the Digital Media Studio at dms@jolietlibrary.org. Or you can call us here at the studio. I'm going to pull up the phone number really quick. It's 815-740-2660. So we are a digital media studio. We help out the community of Joliet. We are part of the Joliet Public Library, and we help a lot of local businesses and artists in terms of we do one-on-one help with Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop. We have 3D printing. We have photography, social media and website help, sound recording, audio cassette to digital conversion, videography. We have a t-shirt printer. We have a large format poster printer. We can do video editing, slide digital conversion, digitize VHS tapes. Pretty much anything, almost anything you can think of that relates to art, design, we can help you with. We're located on the lower level, Joliet Public Library. Hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for joining us today. All right, have a good one.